In The Matrix Resurrections, Warner Brothers, the studio that produces the Matrix movies, were name dropped, and this was a huge surprise in the actual film. Well, it turns out that Warner Brothers was actually worried about this Matrix 4 meta joke, and now we finally have more information about this from the writers of The Matrix Resurrections about how this joke came about and how it ended up in the actual movie. Let's break it down and talk about it. What's going on, Matrix fans? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, the Viking, and we've got a brand new video today about the Matrix Resurrections and that very meta joke. But first, make sure you give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video. The Matrix Resurrections is a very meta movie, and the most meta-ness aspect of this film was when Warner Brothers, the studio that produces the Matrix movies, was name dropped. And this took me out of my experience of the movie because it made me think, am I watching a movie right now? Where am I? I'm in a theater. I'm watching this movie. It took me out of the story of Matrix Resurrections. Not in a bad way. I actually liked it. I really did. But many people online have been saying, how did this joke or this line make it into the actual film? Because it doesn't paint Warner Brothers in the best possible light. I've been very critical of Warner Brothers in the past because of the way that they've handled their DC universe. I don't think the higher-ups at Warner Brothers are good enough to run a successful universe like Marvel. But we finally have official word from the Matrix Resurrections writers about this line and how it made it into the actual movie. This comes from Screen Rant. Warner Brothers was worried about a meta joke about the studio in the Matrix Resurrections. Resurrections is the fourth film in the franchise, which began in 1999 with The Matrix, renowned at the time for its impressive action sequences and exciting storytelling. Resurrections released to both cinemas and home release via HBO Max last week, and so far has been met with mixed reviews. Resurrections follows Thomas Anderson, more commonly known as Neo in the Matrix franchise. Many years on from the previous films, Anderson is a video game developer who is well known for creating the game The Matrix, which follows the main character Neo as he makes his way through the events of the last films. Anderson is contacted about making a sequel to the successful games, something he is hesitant to do. Meanwhile, Trinity, now named Tiffany, is married with children. Anderson believes he is struggling to differentiate what is and isn't reality and sees a therapist to help him with this. His therapist prescribes him blue pills, further keeping him trapped within the Matrix with the help of some familiar faces. Neo and Trinity learn once again how to break free from the Matrix and try to shut it down for good. As Resurrections establishes the previous films as another form of media in the Matrix universe, there's lots of room for humorous meta jokes about the media industry and how it handles sequels. One of which made Warner Brothers particularly concerned. When Neo was approached to make a sequel to his popular game, it is the game's studio's parent company called Warner Brothers who are demanding the sequel. In an interview with Gizmodo, co-writers David Mitchell and Alexander Heeman described the decision to include the joke as enticing trepidation, but assured that any jokes about the company were made with respect and affection. This is from the Gizmodo interview. The Matrix Resurrections opens with the reveal that Thomas Anderson runs a big gaming company that made games, not movies, called The Matrix, and now its parent company, Warner Brothers, wants a fourth game, which he does not want to do. The whole thing feels like a very obvious commentary on the Wachowskis' personal feelings about making this movie, so we asked if it was especially in regards to any trepidations or if Warner Brothers ever pushed back on being made fun of. Trepidation, I think that's a fair word, Mitchell said, and the trepidation gets sublimated into Thomas Anderson's general existential anxiety, I think. As for any crapping on Warner Brothers, this is done, of course, with respect and affection, in the most legal possible sense, with respect and affection. But yeah, I think trepidation is a fair word. It was a big step. It was, Heeman said. It's also that David and I are just writers, and so I never met anyone from Warner Brothers until these interviews were arranged. Same here, Mitchell interjected. So if there was pushback, we never heard of it. Lana protected us. But I also think they were so excited that Lana would make the movie that why would they push back? At that time, certainly, maybe later, but anything, just make that movie. End quote. Many fans believe the joke to be a reference to the fact that Lily Wachowski, one half of the directing duo who made the first 3 Matrix films, wasn't interested in returning for another sequel. This left Lana Wachowski to direct Resurrections by herself. Since the film's release, new information has surfaced confirming that the studio had plans to create a Matrix sequel with or without Lana Wachowski. This has made way for more speculation that there may have been much more pushback with regards to making a 4th film than fans were aware of. Both Wachowski sisters have spoken openly about their decision surrounding Resurrections, with Lily saying that she didn't want to move backward and Lana explained that the film helped her to grieve the death of her parents. While it appears all worked out for the best for them both individually, conversations in the early stages of production may have been difficult, especially if the sisters knew Warner Brothers planned to proceed with the film with or without them. The feeling of pressure and anxiety over creating a sequel to a much-loved franchise is a big part of Thomas Anderson, and in turn is a big part of how Lana Wachowski must have been feeling when making The Matrix Resurrections. It makes sense that there will be some concerns from Warner Bros. About how a joke like that may have come across, but given the context, it creates a personal connection between Lana and Neo. It's clear to see why Mitchell and Heeman may have wanted to write it into the film and why Lana would have gone on to push that to keep it in the film. As for any further installments to the franchise, no confirmation of a 5th Matrix film has been made, and fans are yet to see how Warner Brothers will react to the film and its criticisms going forward. So there we go. The writers put it in, and I found this line very, very funny from the writers. They talk about respect and affection when putting this line into the actual movie, but right here they talk about how to put this into the movie legally. That was very funny in terms of, wow, can we get sued for this? But they didn't hear any pushback about it. And probably it would have been from Lana Wachowski if they would have heard anything, because Warner Brothers would have told her, and then she would have had to tell the writing team that they don't want that line into it, so do a rewrite. But it looks like that Lana Wachowski, if she was told to remove it, she fought for it. She protected her writing team, her crew, everybody involved. And she would have had some pull because she made the previous 3 movies usually successful. So she would have had a lot of pull on this movie. But this was a pretty meta line in the actual film. The writers thought it was a good idea to put it in. And there's also parallels right there between Neo and Lana in that sequence. And in that sequence, in the actual movie, where Warner Brothers is dropped by Jonathan Groff's Smith, is Smith Lily and is Neo Lana? That's my kind of theory about it as well. They're having this conversation about it. You have Thomas Anderson going through this anxiety, not happy with his own life, but now he has to make a 4th game to this hugely successful franchise when he doesn't want to. The previous 3 films were successful, they did well, but the ended, the final chapter just cemented that story, and now the parent company, Warner Brothers, want him to come back to make a 4th game, and in this instance, Lana Wachowski to make a 4th film. And I've talked about this on the channel as well, that in 2017 Warner Brothers gave the go-ahead for a reboot of the Matrix movie, and in that article it was not confirmed that the Wachowskis would return, but Warner Brothers was going to make a 4th Matrix movie no matter what. So the Wachowskis had to come back. Lana felt that she had to come back to the art that she created, or Warner Brothers would give it to somebody else. And they had Michael B. Jordan lined up to replace Keanu Reeves as the main lead and all that kind of stuff. But then Lily had no interest to come back because that was in the past of her life. She's doing new things now. But Lana lost her parents, and she felt the only way to grieve was to make the Matrix Resurrections, bring Neo and Trinity back to life. But there definitely is parallels between Neo and Lana in this film, big time. The reference to Warner Brothers, to today's technology, our obsession with our iPhones or iPads, Hollywood's obsession with remakes, sequels, reboots. I thought it was a very interesting study of Hollywood, of people, and also of what Lana Wachowski was going through personally. And these writers aren't stupid, they're being very coy here as well. They know exactly how Lana Wachowski would have felt. And they took aspects of that and they put it into this script because of what the script was doing. It's a very meta script. It was putting up a mirror to Hollywood's obsession with those types of movies, IP movies. And Lana wanted it in the movie as well. And if Warner Brothers pushed back against her, she stood firm. She says, I'm the director, I created this franchise, this is my art, and it's successful because of me. It's going to stay in the movie. Because I don't think Warner Brothers, I think at first they would have been like, what is this about? But then they would have come around because they really wanted a Matrix 4. With or without Lana Wachowski, but preferably with the artist who created it, Lana Wachowski or both Wachowskis. So they weren't going to piss her off too much because they thought, big IP, huge potential at a moneymaker right here. Let's just let Lana do her thing. And Lana knew this as well. But Warner Brothers, very obsessed with making these remakes and these reboots. They wanted a Matrix 4 with or without the Wachowskis, with or without Keanu Reeves, preferably with them, because then there would have been less kind of marketing to do, less kind of something to sell, because it was the same crew coming back. But if it was a reboot, you got a new director, you got a new actor, new cast and stuff like that. It's kind of harder to sell. And now with the Matrix Resurrections having come out, and it's not a sequel, it's not a reboot, it's not a remake, it's a new kind of thing. It's a Resurrections per se. That's what Lana Wachowski wanted to do. But I found it very interesting that Warner Brothers, they were worried about the meta joke about them in the film, but they didn't want to remove it because they didn't want to piss off Lana Wachowski. I also find this very funny as well because Warner Brothers was more concerned about making money than their own reputation, about how they were presented in the movie. They thought, okay, yeah, this looks pretty bad, but we can make money here, so let's just make ourselves look bad in this film. So fair play to Lana Wachowski for putting this in, and the writing team for putting it in, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. I also did a video about how The Matrix Resurrections is about trauma. And Thomas Anderson, Neo, he's living the same day over and over again. He's depressed, anxiety, he tried to kill himself. This company is making him make more games. He doesn't want to do it. He's not happy. He knows something is wrong. And Morpheus went through something very similar as well. They're running on the treadmill. Lana Wachowski is basically saying that Warner Brothers made her do this film because if she didn't come back, they would have given it to somebody else. They would have given her baby, her art, to somebody else to do a new thing with it. So will the Wachowskis find themselves in a loop like Neo and Morpheus did, in terms of they have to come back to this franchise every few years to keep what they own, to keep what they created, or Warner Brothers will just do it with somebody else? It's something to think about. I don't think it's a very far-fetched theory because of all the science that's in this actual movie. And it's a little bit scary as well how these huge billion-dollar companies own these people, and they just keep on and on to them to come back for reboots, for sequels, for remakes. And it can get pretty exhausting, I'm sure, because Lana Wachowski is a visionary. She has new ideas, but she's brought back to this thing that she created 18 years ago, 20 years ago. And even Thomas Anderson in the actual movie, he is being brought back to do another Matrix game when he doesn't want to, and he's being made. And Jonathan Groff's character is basically like, yeah, Warner Brothers want us to do another movie and another game, and yeah, they're going to do it without or without us. We have no choice, really. So there we have it, some explanation about why that line made it to the movie, and Warner Brothers were actually worried about it and upset at it, but they didn't want to ruin Lana Wachowski's return. They didn't want to stop or prevent them making money. They wanted to concentrate more on making money than their own reputation. That's why I think the higher-ups of Warner Brothers are just not fit for the jobs that they are in. But guys, what's your thoughts on this? Do you agree with the joke, the line in the movie? Did it take you out of it? Did you not like it? Let me know below. Very interesting. And these writers, they said it as well in the quotes. We had to do it in a very respectful and affectionate way, but also a legal way. So that shows you that maybe things behind the scenes weren't so good between Warner Brothers and Lana Wachowski, because basically she didn't want to come back, but she didn't want to let down the characters that she created, Trinity. She was basically going to give away what she created to somebody else. And that can be pretty scary if you've ever created something in your life or if you own something. Can you imagine giving it to somebody else like that? That can cause a lot of anxiety and stress, and that's what Lana Wachowski was under, and that's why she came back. Because let me know your thoughts about this. It's very interesting. It's a very meta line. It's a very meta movie, but yeah, that was just, it's a little bit sad, but also very fascinating how it happened. But guys, thanks very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, get into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. I love hearing what you have to say. And yes, every single day we will do a brand new Matrix video for you guys. Let me know below what's your thoughts on Warner Brothers making Lana Wachowski come back to do Matrix 4. Or maybe Lana shouldn't have come back at all. Did you like the movie? Did you hate the movie? Discuss below.